Good morning, friends. Today we're working on Unit 5, Lesson 4, pages 233 and 234. So we're going to do the front and the back of this page. But before we get started with this, we're going to start with a couple of times so that we can stay fresh on the time. Go ahead and type what time it is into the chat right now. The time is 12:05 or 5 after 12. Let's do just two more of these. What time is it? All right, let's check it out. It's 5:45. As you can see, the number or the hour hand is between the 5 and the 6. It is not yet at 6. Last one. What time is it? All right, it is 1:10. So how many of you counted 5:10? And notice that the hour hand was just pointed right after that 1, indicating that it's still in the hour of 1. Nice work, friends. We will keep on doing those during this unit so that when we get to the test time, you will remember those times and be fresh in your memory of how to do that. Because today we are moving on to graph reading. And reading graphs is not so difficult. It's one of my favorite units. When I was a kid, I liked doing graphing because there's an artistic component to it and it's just kind of fun for me. So let's first look at this right here. We're talking about graphs, and graphs are just ways for us to show information visually. So visually means with our eyes we can see it. We don't have to do a bunch of reading or figuring things out. We can just quickly look at one of these graphs and figure out what the information is that it's telling us. So picture graphs actually use pictures, and if we look at both of these graphs, you can see that we're using balloons for this one and we're using leaves for this one, and that's because this graph is about balloons. What is this graph about? Unmute yourself and tell me. Yeah, and we can see that just by looking at the picture. I don't have to read a single word on this page to understand what's happening. And that's why it's called a picture graph, is because we're actually using the picture that represents the thing that we're talking about. It would not make sense for us to look at number of balloons and have pictures of dogs or cats in here, would it? So that's why it's actually balloons. If we were talking about dogs or cats, then it would make sense for us to put a picture of a dog or cat in there. So our vocabulary today is picture graph because we are looking at picture graphs. Write the number, ring more or fewer. So let's look right here, because we're not just reading how many they have, we're also reading who has more and who has fewer. One of the things that I like to do when I get going with graphs is just do a little thing that I call like make a cheat sheet. And making a cheat sheet means I'm just going to count up each of these balloon numbers and I'm going to write how many there are at the end of each one. That way I don't have to sit there and count them over and over and figure out how many balloons there are all the time. And the other thing that can help when we're working on something like this is I'm going to put, here's the end where Peter's balloons are, and I'm just going to put a little line there, and here's the end where Hannah's are. So right away I can see that Hannah has 1 more balloon than Peter, and I can see that Carla has 2 more balloons than Hannah and 3 more balloons than Peter. It just makes it really clear. Those are just tricks that I use. I suggest you use them, but I'm not going to force you to use them. So those are just some tricks that I use when I'm reading graphs, just because it makes figuring out the information a little faster. Now, Carla has something balloons than Peter. So when I compare Carla and Peter, I can see right away that she has more balloons than Peter. So I can circle right away, more. But how many more balloons than Peter? Well, that's where my little lines come into place here, and I just look up here and I can see 1, 2, 3. Carla has 3 more balloons than Peter. We are following the usual model that I do where it's I do, we do. Okay, so this is the one I'm just kind of showing you. This is the one we're going to do together. Hannah has more or fewer balloons than Carla. Well, I look up here, I can see without counting, Carla has the most balloons. So Hannah doesn't have more balloons than Carla. She has fewer balloons than Carla. How many fewer? If I look right here, I can see that she's missing the 2 that Carla has. So Hannah has 2 fewer balloons than Carla. Any questions about that? All right, so let's move on to number 3 and 4, where we're looking at the leaves collected. Now, we're gonna do a we do, but I'm gonna prepare myself right now by doing all those things that I did up here, where I'm gonna count things up and draw my lines. So right here, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's 8 and 6. So that's just for me to be helped. And I'm going to draw my end lines right there so that I can see this really easy. Just helps me to see things easily. All right, now we're going to look at number 3. It says Amari needs more leaves to have as many as Sam has. How are we going to figure that out? How many leaves does Amari have? Everyone? Yeah, Amari has 4. How many leaves does Sam have? Everyone? Sam has 8. So, how many more leaves does Amari need to have as many as Sam? Everyone? All right, so let's write that in the box. Amari needs 4 more leaves to have as many as Sam has. So you can see, chart reading is not so challenging when we're looking at it like this. All right, if Sam gives away blank leaves, he will have as many leaves as Marco has. So now we need to figure out how many leaves Marco has. Everyone? Okay, Marco has 6. We want to make Sam have 6. So how many leaves does Sam need to give away to have the same number as Marco? Everyone? Yeah, he needs to give 2 away to have the same amount as Marco. Are there any questions about this? All right, now it says solve, put together, take apart problems. Because when we're looking at charts and graphs, we're not just making the data, we're also doing lots of comparing so that we can see who has more, who has less, who has the same, and it's all right there. And check that out. We have some that are the same. This picture graph shows the number of apples that Mrs. Reed bought at the store. So once again, I'm going to go to my chart, write my totals, and draw that line so I know. All right, the first question says, how many apples did Mrs. Reed buy altogether? Go ahead and figure that out and type it in the chat. All right, we figured out that 4 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. So she bought 8 apples. Make sure you put that label, should say apples, on that line. There are 2 green apples, 1 yellow apple, and 1 red apple in the bowl. The rest are in Mrs. Reed's bag. How many apples are in the bag? So there are 2 green apples, 1 yellow apple, and 1 red apple in the bowl. The rest are in the bag. How many apples are left in the bag? Go ahead and type it in chat. Nice work, friends. Are there any questions so far? Let's do a thumbs up, thumb sideways, thumbs down. How are you feeling about reading graphs and comparing so far? All right, the next one I'm going to read to you, and you're going to solve it on your own. This picture graph shows the number of books that 4 children read. So those children are Pablo, Janice, Helen, and Ray. 2 children read 6 books altogether. Who are the 2 children? So that means you're going to put together the number of books and it should equal 6. So you need to write their names right there. Which 2 children, when you add their books together, equals 6? Not answering right now, I'm just reading it to you. All right, number 8 says, 2 of the books the children read are about cars and 2 books are about trains. The rest of the books are about animals. How many books are about animals? When you're finished, take a picture of both sides and turn it into me on Seesaw. Thanks, friends.